I think political street art in Egypt has a different role than the social media. It is significant in several ways. First, and probably the most important, is that the political street art has become a symbol of freedom. People got back their own country. They wanted to declare that they own the streets, they own the environment, and the political street art was a perfect tool to express that feeling. So let's say the project Egypt in Colors, where neighborhoods guided by the fine art students decided to paint the streets to make it more colorful and more nice. So this was a way to declare that we own the streets. We have the freedom to decide what we want to do. Then the second, I think, important significance of political art, of course, is a way to express yourself, express your sadness, express your anger and happiness. And thus, for example, such project as Open Mic has become a really popular among the neighborhoods in Cairo. People could just go up to the microphone and express what they think. And this is also a kind of street art or street intervention, so to say. Then third, I think political street art is more constant, is a permanent reminder of something that is important. If we put something on Facebook, it does go there for a certain time, it stays there. But let's say paintings of martyrs, of November clashes or recent Port Said massacre is a constant reminder. It's always there, it's always on that wall. So it just reminds people of what is important to remember, the crimes that Mubarak regime has performed or SCAF has performed recently. And then also, for example, theater production of Tahrir monologues, where people narrate their stories during the 18 days of the revolution, has been touring in Egypt and is also an important reminder of what has happened. And that brings me to another point, that political street art is also an alternative to the state media or to the social media. Not everybody has an access to TV or to internet, Facebook and Twitter. And thus people take in their own hands how to inform people on what is important. And that's, for example, the community I'm Egyptian has been screening important videos from the protests or important videos where SCAF members are clashing with the protesters, and they've been screening it in the different neighborhoods of Cairo, which is also a kind of art or street intervention, and it plays such a role as an alternative to the state media or alternative to any other medias. So I think in these four ways, political street art is important and also different from the social media.
Well, let's take a look at some of the details of the Iranian initiative. It calls for both sides to end the fighting simultaneously and resolve the conflict without foreign intervention. When that happens, for observers from Iran, Egypt and Saudi Arabia and Turkey, members of the new contact group, to go and monitor the ceasefire, and then for foreign countries to stop supplying arms and support to either side. And it also calls for talks between the Syrian government and the opposition, as well as a National Reconciliation Committee. Phyllis Bennis is a fellow at the Institute for Policy Studies in Washington, D.C. and joins us now from our studio there. Thanks for being with us. What do you make of this Iran proposal?
Well, I think it's important that Iran is engaging. This is an initial proposal. This isn't the final arrangement. I think it's very problematic, for instance, that it seems the language that I saw, at least, and I think there's probably more than one translation floating around, but the language that I saw seemed to indicate that Iran's call was only for ending shipments of arms to what they called armed groups, not specifying an end to arms sales, arms shipments, armed support to the government. That's obviously not going to fly as a final arrangement. But I think what's more important than the details that Iran is putting on the table at the moment is the notion that Iran needs to be part of any negotiation process if it's going to be taken seriously.
But is Iran going to be allowed to be part of that process? We've got this four-party new consulting group to which Saudi Arabia most obviously decided not to show up last time. And now we have, on the eve of this proposal, the U.S. revealing this information that it claims to have about Iran supplying the other side.
Well, I don't think there's any question that the leak of the intelligence document from the U.S. Was timed very directly to undermine the Iranian announcement of its first diplomatic proposals. There's nothing new in it. The fact that Iran is shipping arms to Syria is an old story. The fact that they're shipping them through Iraq is an old story. The new report seems to indicate that there's perhaps more than we were told publicly, but there's not even the claim that this is anything new. I think what's new here is a U.S. effort to make sure to divert attention from the Iranian proposals. The real question will be whether the U.S. tries to interfere with the meetings, with the process, with the possibilities of this new set of four-party talks that was convened first by the president of Egypt, President Morsi, who called for the four-party talks on the basis that talks within the region had the best chance of success. There has also been talk, I just returned from South Africa, and there was talk there about whether the IBSA group, the three countries of India, Brazil, and South Africa, the powerhouses, if you will, of the global South, might be engaged as well to back up the four-party talks. In any of those situations, the U.S. would be out of the loop, as would be Russia and China, the major powers. Europe would not be involved. This would be an initiative of the region and of the global South, which would be a real game changer, both in terms of its own possibility for success and also a way to say that not only the U.S. gets to set the terms.
Well, let me just challenge that point for a second. I mean, a real game changer in the sense that you're having a large number of very important voices in the conversation, but will it actually fly unless it gets the support of other voices? For one, you've got the United States attempting, as you've pointed out, to marginalize any Iranian involvement. And then you've also got the notable absence of the real family, as Iran called it, the neighborhood. Saudi Arabia, as I say, not turning up to the quartet talks. The GCC countries not in any way seeming to participate in any of this.
Right. Well, I think we don't know yet. It's very early. There's only been one meeting. It's unfortunate that the Saudis decided not to come, but that was only to the first meeting. If it looks like there's some motion forward on this, I think the Saudis would probably want to have a seat at the table. The other countries are not likely to move without the Saudis. Even Qatar, which has been sending arms separately, then Saudi Arabia is unlikely to continue on its own. If Turkey is part of the regional quartet, if it's going to be called that, is going to make it much more difficult for those countries to get arms to the rebel groups. Turkey has been playing the role of facilitating that. If Turkey pulls back in the context of a broader effort to stop the arms going to both sides, then I think it would be much more difficult for the GCC and for other countries in the region to continue to try to send arms without the participation of those who have been among the most powerful arms supporters so far.
All right. Phyllis Bennis in Washington, D.C., thank you for your comments.
Well, Dalia Mugahid is a director and senior analyst at the Abu Dhabi Gallup Center. She joins me live from there. Thanks for being with us. Now, we are expecting quite a large crowd in Tahrir Square this Wednesday, not only to commemorate the 1 year since that revolution, but also because so many people want to reiterate that so many of their demands have not been met. How would you gauge the current mood in Egypt right now?
Thank you, Hazem. I think that the voices we just heard represent the two sides of this story. On one hand, people are more optimistic about their future than they have been in a very long time. But at the same time, the rate of change and especially the deteriorating economy has left many wondering what really has changed. What is important to keep in mind, though, is that the majority do believe things are getting better and will get better in the future.
You talked about the sense of optimism there. Do you think that there's a real fear barrier that's been broken as well in terms of the way people have dealt with the security forces and the army?
Absolutely. The public has transformed through this revolution. I think that that is the enduring fruit of the uprising. People have taken their country back. In our research, we find that more than 80% of Egyptians say that if there's a problem in their community, it's up to them to fix it. Today, 75% believe they have the power themselves to make change. Faith in peaceful means of change has increased after the revolution. So if nothing else has changed, the Egyptian people have transformed and have truly taken their country back.
But given that the Egyptian public's faith in the military has fallen so much over the last few months, and that many of them feel that the military has basically hijacked this revolution, do you expect many people to boycott the official SCAF celebrations that are also set for this Wednesday?
I'm going to disagree with that. Actually, our research shows that the vast majority still have faith in the military and in SCAF specifically. Tahrir, while it is a very important component of the story, is not the entire story. More than 85% of Egyptians say they still have confidence in SCAF. At the same time, though, they do expect SCAF to transfer power to a civilian government as soon as a president is elected. So no, I don't expect most Egyptians to boycott the official celebration. I think that this is going to be a day primarily of pride for most Egyptians.
And then just finally, how do you think this is going to play out over the coming months? I mean, should we take the army at their word when they say that they will cede power?
Well, it's of course difficult to predict, but 89% of Egyptians believe they will indeed turn over power to a civilian government as soon as a president is elected. I think what's really important now is to watch the parliament. The parliament, of course, is a majority Islamist legislator, and this cannot be interpreted as an ideological mandate by the people.
We're gonna have to leave it there. Dalia Mogahed in Abu Dhabi. Good to get your thoughts today.